Welcome to another episode of Franky the Crafter. This week, we're gonna be crafting some modular docks. Alright D-Crafters, this is gonna be one of our easier videos. Today, you're mainly gonna need foam board here. Alright, so the first group of docks that we're gonna do, we're gonna measure them at 2 inches wide. After you're done cutting it, remove one of the papers on one side. For these smaller docks, I choose to make them 5 inches long. Then I texture them with a metal brush. I start texturing this one indoors, but eventually I move outside because I have so many. I don't want the dust to be in my working space. Then I begin to actually put in the planks or draw the planks, and I make sure not to cut very deep. This is only on the surface. And then I go back with a pen and kind of define those lines better. Now there are 2 ways to make the post. I'll show you the hard way and then I'll show you the easy way. But what I'm doing here first is kind of giving it some texture. I don't want this to be 100% smooth. Even though I could have done a better job, I noticed at the end not a lot of this scratching came through on the final project. But I'm making each one of them 1 inch for the smaller docks. Now for cutting them, there's a few ways, but I found that the easiest way, at least for me, was to use this gardening tool. Just be careful not to... Oh, lost one. Be careful not to lose them. Alright, so when putting them together, the first thing you want to do is mark where you want the posts to be. To make the holes bigger, I work my way up with my tools. So I start off with a thin one, thicker one, and then you see me here even using my brush to get through them until they're the proper size. Now keep in mind not to put the posts too close to any of the edges because you will break the foam. I learned my lesson the first one I made. But here you see me do another one in the middle. On the smaller ones, it's better off doing 3 pairs of posts. And like I said, I learned my lesson. So I ended up actually making my own tool to make these holes. And actually it worked out a lot better than the brush. Just make sure, again, don't do them too close to the edges and then you'll be fine. So eventually you do want to hot glue them, and you want to mark off halfway to make sure that all your posts go at the same height. Now doing this right might be a little bit tricky. I feel like I got lucky. I got it down on my first try, but I do notice that I think in at least one of the ones with the big docks, I do mess up. It's like it wasn't straight and it's wobbly, but since I made like 20 or so, I don't know if it was actually 20, only one of them came out bad. That's pretty good. Now this next step right here, I think as a community we can find a better way to do it. This seems kind of like, yeah, whatever, let's just make it strong this way. But it worked, so I went with it. Now for the bigger docks, I do go ahead and buy some of these dowel pin things. They're used for building furniture. You can find them in big hardware stores. And they're like $2.50 per box, and I think the box is like 12 of them, something like that. And the steps are pretty much the same for these one. I marked the halfway, which for these are 1 inch. I make the bigger docks 10 inches long and 3 inches wide. And as you can tell, all the steps from here are basically the same as the first ones. Although I did have to upgrade to a thicker tool to make the holes. Now when it comes to fortifying the big ones, I'm even sloppier. I don't know. I think I need some help from the community on this one. I was kinda in a rush. I got them all done in one day. Painting them are super simple. The first thing you want to do is primer them with the black Mod Podge mix, and then you add whatever brown you want really. Dry brush some gray on that, but honestly I think I did a little bit too much on this one. Maybe not the best example. And after that, strategically place your brown wash over the dock. I try not to get a lot of it on the edges, and I try not to get a lot of it in the center where most of the people walk through. This is just a little bit of rope right here that I'm adding, just to make it look, I guess, more realistic or more engaging. I don't like to do it on all of them, but it is good to have some with it. And I'm using Tacky Glue to glue them onto my piece. And let me apologize for the bad camera angle ahead of time, but I'll basically try to walk you through it. I use the scissors to kind of get me started on gluing it. And before I even start gluing it, you saw me twirling it and spiraling it, making sure that the string moves or is shaped in the way I want it to be, because this string is a little bit tougher, but once it dries with the Tacky Glue, it's amazing. It's super strong and it's super solid. Now if you want, you can also add the rope to the posts, which I think it's a must. You should. It looks really good. I don't do it on every post on the small docks, but I do it on every single post on the big docks. And as you can tell, it's not that hard, it's just a little bit time consuming. So for the big docks, I figure out a different way to do it. Alright, so this is the string that I used. So I took the same approach as to build tiles for like a dungeon. I wanted to make sure that I had enough to basically build a dungeon out of this modular docks, right? So I did 2 sets like this, 2 or 3, I don't remember right now. As you can tell, I was not gonna do every single post individually. So what I did was, I put Tacky Glue on every single post, then I ran my string through all of them without cutting anything yet, and then I put a little bit more Tacky Glue using a brush. And these things were nice, it pretty solid. I'm very happy with the way they turned out. So overall, I had about 14 of these long docks, 4 of the smaller docks, and about 3 or 4 of these just planks that are meant to be coming off the docks. Now I have to say, this was surprisingly one of my favorite projects for the channel. I think it took me in a different direction. I will be able to do better looking dioramas because of them. And I mean, for my players, I've already used these twice, and both of them were just amazing. I mean, my players weren't less impressed the second time they saw them. The fact that I can arrange it in any way I want and make the port towns look different is great, because I can put them in different settings and just tell them, well, this is a different town, and it's believable because it looks different. And I love that. I love that I can rearrange my port towns in whichever way I want. I'm very, very happy with this project. Super cheap. The most expensive thing about this was the wooden posts that were $250. To make this project, I would estimate that I did not spend over $10, including paint, everything. I spent less than $10 to set all of this up. I'm talking about the docks, just the docks. Okay, so I want to finish by saying that I ran my first game in about a year, to be honest with you. And it was a little bit rough, I was a little bit rusty, but either way, everything came out amazing. The whole game went through smoothly. It was great. It feels good to be back in the game. Well, I'll catch you on the flippity side. See you on the next one.